our webinar. Apologies that our gifted moderator, Eva Czermak, is just having some technical difficulties getting on, but I'd like to welcome everybody to our panel on dealing with xenophobia in times of COVID-19. We have a very distinguished panel, and we also look forward to having you join us on the discussion portion of the webinar as well. My name is Bill Rintz. I'm the Alumni Relations Specialist for Rotary Peace Fellowships, and we've really enjoyed bringing this webinar series to you. Now, with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Karen Augustat, who is a facilitator today, but she will be introducing our panelists today and guiding us through our discussion. And I'll be here to support, of course, Karen. But go ahead, okay. Karen.
I will try my best. So hello, everybody, again. I see even more known faces like Lablu, for example. Okay. Yes, I will only introduce you now by name, the panelists, because for the moment I don't have the introduction to you printed out. So I would like to ask everybody of you just give within 2 sentences. Oh, Eva's there. So do you want to take over?
Yes, I'm very introduction now.
Okay.
I'll just make it, I'm very sorry. I'm doing it with my mobile phone now because all the other devices don't seem to work today. So, welcome everybody. Sorry for the delay. I was just today for the first time having problems with my Zoom. So, welcome to the panel about xenophobia in times of COVID-19. We organized this primarily as the European Alumni Association, because we already found racism and xenophobia to be a topic in Europe already last year when we were founding the organization. And so now additionally, we have added the topic COVID-19 because it's changed the situation somewhat and has reinforced even old stereotypes that already existed before. So I'm not gonna say any more general introduction. I just want to now introduce the first speaker, and he is Walter Gyger. He is a Rotarian that is retired. He was ambassador of Switzerland, and now he's the principal representative of Rotary International to the UN office and other international organizations in Geneva. And he's also the president of the Swiss Liechtenstein Rotarian Action Group for Peace. And he's a board member of Rotary Action for Peace. He is the author and initiator of the Rotary Peace Project Incubator, and he will tell us about this new project today as well. So Walter, how do you see what is going on in a global context, and what are the risks and also the hopes and possibilities that you see?
Walter, you're muted again.
Okay, now it should be good. Thank you, Eva. Hello to everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. My point of departure is that we cannot understand the present time and take sound decisions for the future if we do not learn from the past. And history teaches us that times such as those we are currently experiencing can become turning points. They can lead to further progress in international cooperation, allows the sharing of human talents, improvisation, empathy, and solidarity, be a chance to strive for a fairer and more peaceful world. Or they can be harboring for further crises, leading to tensions within our societies and at international level. Today, many people are suffering. They are frightened not only for their health, but also for their economic future. Scapegoating is linked to this time of insecurity and can easily lead to xenophobia, hate speech, exclusion, and even authoritarian systems. People are looking for culprits and want their governments to act with determination against them. consider the past 2 months. We have seen both empathy and solidarity, as well as hate, egoism, and abuse of power. Dear all, we have the future in our hands. For me, the essential question of today is, how can we make progress in peace building and conflict prevention?
And do you have an answer to your own question?
Well, as a former ambassador, I am of course convinced that international cooperation is essential for peace building and conflict prevention. But to come back to my starting point, history has shown that the top-down approach has its limits. It must be complemented by a bottom-up approach. Atatürk, the founder of modern Turkey, once said, "Peace at home, peace in the world." I think he was right. For me, the logical implication of this phrase is that peace projects should start at the bottom. I believe in a trickle-up effect. Later, Sanela Music will explain how we propose to work in Bosnia-Herzegovina from inner to outer peace. For a civil society organization like Rotary, one has to be realistic enough to recognize that while world peace is a matter for governments and politics, we as Rotarians or as Peace Fellows, as civil society organizations, can contribute best from the bottom up, reducing tension and contributing to conflict reduction and peace building at community level.
So is this the purpose of the Peace Project Incubator that you are just initiating?
Exactly, Eva. Together with our coordination teams, composed mainly of Rotary Peace Fellows and other peace workers from civil society organizations, we are developing Rotary compatible peace projects in 10 crucial areas. Well, Rotary compatible means projects fulfilling the criteria required by the Rotary Foundation for funding, and in particular responding to urgent community need. Let me give you just a few examples. Eva, you are part of the team Healthcare as an Agent of Peace. Natalia, she will speak later, works with her team on using cultural resources for peace. Sanela and her team focuses on building trust in post-conflict communities. Other areas include urban security, gender equality, economic development, and so on and so forth. We were planning to have our incubator in July, but because of the corona pandemic, this has been postponed to November. It will now be organized during the Geneva Peace Week, which takes place from the 2nd to the 6th November. Coordination team will organize action-oriented sessions to present their projects to interested participants of the Peace Week. We also plan during the Peace Week a meeting with Rotarians. We hope to convince them to take our projects on board and to implement them using global grants from the Rotary Foundation. In June, our approach will be outlined at the Global Cyber Peace Conference. Between July and October, various webinars will be organized by our coordination teams to discuss their project ideas. You may also be interested to learn that Rotarians from Germany, Serbia, and I welcome in particular Ivana, Ukraine, and Switzerland are planning the creation of a European chapter of the Rotarian Action Group for Peace, to mirror the Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association of Europe. The objective is to work together with Peace Fellows for the implementation of peace projects. A last word, let me end with an appeal. It has never been more important to implement peace projects than it is today. I'm an optimist, but there is much work to do because pessimists and scapegoaters are eroding our vision of peace. So join us at the Rotary Peace Incubator to get the process started. Now it's time to work together for peace building and conflict prevention. We have talked enough about peace. Time has come for action. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Walter, for your vision and for your motivational speech. Now we have 5 speakers today. I didn't mention that before. So now next we will hear you an academic approach. It's Nicolas Gituku. He is from Kenya. He is also a Rotary Peace Fellow from Chulalongkorn University. And he is he's an assistant professor of history, philosophy, and anthropology at the City University of New York, York College. He has many research interests, to name but a few: war and peace studies, European history, world wars, and many more. And today, Nicolas will tell us about how all conflict is local. Welcome, Nicolas.
Thank you very much, Eva. I would want to compliment Walter's presentation with a sort of a theoretical sort of thought and sentiments that I have prepared. So my topic for the day, like you mentioned, is when this happens next time, remember, all conflicts are local. We all know and appreciate the fact that peace is not and cannot be defined as the absence of formally declared war. For a very long time now, almost 2 decades now, I've been quite fascinated by the deeply set latent and non-violent conflict that lurks and simmers beneath the thin veneer of the normal. It could be religious in nature, it could be ethnic in nature, it could be of a racial nature, or all structural and systemic issues like historic and permanent dispossession of land, military occupations, lack of access to productive or natural resources. Even war in ancient societies, and I'm thinking here of the Greek or Roman era, cannot be understood as a specific and definite event within bounded time, or as a particular episode of physical combat. Rather, as Graham Shipley demonstrated in his masterful classic, War and Society in the Greek World, conflict or war with a lowercase w can and should be understood as part of a continuing social violence in general. That is, full-blown wars or even isolated incidences of unwarranted and wanton violence always stem from a wider underlying social context of social conflict with deep fault lines of identity politics or ethnic and racial tensions, or basically small hatreds. The significance of this paradigm or approach to a full understanding of xenophobia or conflict is that it dissolves the boundaries between specific episodes of peace and war. Shipley therefore distinguishes between war with uppercase W, that is actual physical combat in a single event within a bounded segment of time, and war with a lowercase w that shows violent, bloody conflict as a component of a larger spectrum of organized and simmering societal violence or structural or latent, or what you can call intractable conflict. Unfortunately, traditionally in the history of the study of war, diplomats and political scientists and historians have understood war in an extremely limited manner as a phenomenon occurring within a watertight compartment of time with a beginning and an end. And there are inherent dangers and indeed injustices, according to Shipley, when historians and other scholars straitjacket events into discrete episodes without recognizing existing alternatives. For instance, one obvious danger is not being able to resolve social conflict before it peaks or reaches its sharp end of a full-blown mortal combat. And the second danger of treating war as occurring within definite and short period of time with a beginning and an end, two moments between which the state of war, which the physical combat is supposed to pertain, is actually identifying the said beginning and end. When we talk of the Second World War, for example, when does it exactly begin? And when does it end? Does it end at all? After all, declarations of war and ceasefire are deceptive. And this is because, to quote cheaply again, nothing objectively changes when war is declared or officially halted. War may effectively have begun before it is declared, or may not begin until months later. As such, the First World War, the First and Second World War wars, and the First and Second Gulf Wars can be better understood if they are thought of as being a part of a continuum of war. In this sense, the First and Second World Wars and the First and Second Gulf Wars form a continuum of war. Peace, quote unquote, in the respective intermediate periods was only apparent as hostility and tensions continued to simmer between the concerned parties. Indeed, such an alternative understanding of war, conflict, and animosity includes not only wars, and I quote cheaply again, as disparate in size and nature as the Falklands War, the Gulf War of 1991, the Cold War, and the Second World War, end of quote, but also more importantly, prevailing social conflict at any given time and place. And so to conclude, there is a problem when we gather here to talk about dealing with xenophobia in times of COVID-19. Rather, we should address various aspects and elements of underlying intractable social conflict globally, nationally, and locally. And the local, to me, is very paramount. According to the respected MIT political scientist and specialist of ethnic conflict and identity politics, Roger Peterson, conditions of conflict are as a result, and a quote here, as a result of extraordinary circumstances. In this instance, COVID-19 being, and I quote again, inextricably linked to the ordinary. That is latent local features of social conflict. Put differently, an extraordinary situation such as we have, or such as Kenya had in the emotive and hotly contested elections whose results were disputed in 2007, act as a blanket or a cover for more specific ordinary local conflict, fault lines, or already polarized localities that are unrelated to the political process or to natural disasters such as this pandemic. A good illustration is to be found in the mistaken assumption that in Eastern Europe, Jewish, and this is another example, Jewish persecution, especially in occupied Poland, was solely as a result and the responsibility and therefore rested in the hands of the German Nazis, while ignoring the very well-known fact that it was also as a result of subtle pre-existing political features of local communities that led to conflict erupting locally, violence erupting against the Polish Jewish neighbors. This is a perspective that is well captured by the Princeton-based Polish-American sociologist Jan Tomasz Gross in his book Neighbors, The Destruction of the Jewish Community in Jedwane, Poland, and I hope, Eva, I said that right, Jedwane, a book published in 2001. And so to conclude, I want to end with this major thought. That is, wars, xenophobia, hatred, and violence does not happen in a vacuum. And like Walter began by saying, we have to learn from the lessons of history, and there cannot be peace without justice, and there cannot be justice without truth, And by the same token, there cannot be any security or peace. And if you want to learn more about some of the things that I've talked about, over and above what I've already mentioned, the references that I mentioned, I would refer you to read Slavenka Drakulic's They Would Never Hurt a Fly, and Timothy Gartonash's book, The File. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Nicolas, for your presentation. Our next speaker will be Natalia Zinaeva-Pankowska. She's also actually the main organizer of this webinar. She's a former Rotary Peace Fellow from Chula as well, and she's from Poland and lives in Poland. She's a sociologist, a member of the International Association of Genocide Scholars. She is doing her PhD about Holocaust denial and memory and identity in Eastern Europe. She has worked at and traveled to memory sites and museums about genocide, as well as in Poland, as for example, also in Cambodia. But she's not only working with the past, but also with the present, for example, by doing research about monitoring racism and xenophobia, such as working at the Never Again Association. So Natalia, with the Never Again Association and its partners in European countries, you have monitored the situation of xenophobia recently in the recent months during the pandemic in Poland and in Europe. And can you please tell us a little bit about the results of your monitoring?
Thank you very much, Eva, for this nice introduction. And I'm actually very thankful to you for your contribution to the development of a European chapter of a Rotary Peace Alumni Association. So it's our common task, and I'm very thankful to you. And I'm very excited to take part, to participate in this panel discussion with excellent speakers and with participants, fellows from all over the world. So I would like to discuss with you how we can together, what we can organize, how we can organize solidarity to combat racism and xenophobia today. And we know that xenophobia and hate are increasing in the world. It's increasing everywhere, in Europe, in the United States, in Asia, in Australia. And now I'd like to use my slides. So xenophobia is increasing everywhere in the world. The pandemic has started with anti-Asian racism and anti-Chinese racism, xenophobia. But as we can see, it's not a problem only of one group. It's not a problem of a particular group, certain group, but it is a problem of a society. And in this society, every group, it concerns every group in the society, depending also on the historical, social, and political context. Amongst the victims, we have refugees, migrants, ethnic, religious, national minorities, LGBT, and many other groups, especially those groups which historically have been marginalized in our societies, such as Roma and Jews in Eastern Europe. The hate has been spread by traditionally far right groups, but today also by mainstream actors, including media, explicitly or implicitly, often by using allusions or over lexicalization when they mention the name of a certain group many times in a negative context, but without explicitly blaming it. And here we also can observe dangerous attempts to divide people into us and them. And all stereotypes which we have now are not newly created. All stereotypes are not newly created, and it is historically, they were historically constructed and used for many centuries before. For example, anti-Semitism or hatred against Jews. Here we can see all historical elements of conspiracy theories, and when we cannot see the enemy, when the enemy is invisible, such as a virus, the conspiracy theories are easily being created. Going back to history, for example, during the Black like in the Middle Ages, Jews were accused of intentionally spreading the disease by poisoning wells in Europe, and they were persecuted and expelled from towns because of this. They were also accused of blood libel or ritual murder of Christian kids to use their blood for ritual purposes. And actually, how did Jews arrive to Poland? They started arriving to Poland and to Eastern Europe in the Middle Ages, when they were expelled from Western Europe. They were persecuted in Western Europe because of a Black Plague, when they were accused of poisoning wells and of spreading the disease. So they started to come to settle in Poland and in Eastern Europe, and it was a safe place for them at that time. So, so we need also to think about history and think how we can put this, our contemporary situation in this historical context. And during the Second World War, the Nazis used propaganda to scapegoat Jews who allegedly spread typhus and lies. So there were many such examples. So we can see how the mechanism of transferring the guilt to others, to minorities, functions, and how we can apply this historical framework to the current situation. For example, we can go somewhere outside of Europe. Let's take India as an example, where the biggest religious minority, Muslims, are accused of spreading the pandemic and attacked on this ground. And the hatred is also supported and spread by the media. We can also apply this historical frame to Roma people in Europe, a disadvantaged and marginalized group who have been accused of spreading the diseases throughout history and also today during the COVID-19. It happened, for example, recently in Slovakia, and it also happened in Romania, and it happened in Bulgaria. So the same mechanism of xenophobia and exclusion is applied to refugees also across the world. For example, Rohingya refugees. In many cases, the refugees suffer also from the lack of medical care, and they live in extremely difficult conditions with no access to protective measure, basic services such as water, no information. So we can also think about refugees in this context. According to the recent results of the monitoring of the Never Again Association of Media and Social Media, which is actually a big document of almost 40 pages, there is almost no ethnic or religious group left that has not been blamed for the pandemic. And in the case of Poland, for example, all traditional historical disputes between various national groups reappeared again. For example, Germans and Ukrainians, and we all know that Polish-German and Polish-Ukrainian relations historically were difficult, and there were conflicts in the past. So I'd like just to give you two examples from our monitoring, from our brown book. One example about Germany, and another example is about Ukrainians. A post on social media says, Germany should stop lying to Europe about coronavirus. Every Pole who goes there and comes back is infected with the German virus. Everyone says that they are the main source of a virus. Another example is about Ukrainians. And it is an example of discrimination. When the young man tried to enter the store, the security guard asked him if he was Polish or Ukrainian. And when he replied that he was Ukrainian, he was told that he couldn't go inside the shop because of the coronavirus. So, and there are many such examples which we can also present, and we publish our monitoring. You can visit and find it on our website online. So I also, you can see a website, you can also visit it, and you can see more information and find it there.
And now we have heard very many examples about how hatred develops or how hatred is treated for a long time. Can you also have or tell us some positive recommendations about how to go about it, how to deal with the problem now and after the pandemic?
First of all, what we need for this moment is global solidarity and global stance against racism and xenophobia. Of course, awareness raising campaigns are important. Hate is mostly directed against marginalized, vulnerable groups. Population should be educated about existing stereotypes against such groups, about anti-Semitism, about Islamophobia, anti-African racism, and related to them stereotypes. So awareness raising campaigns are important. And we can use different methods, tactics to deal with racism and xenophobia. And for example, here in Poland, with my organization, we try to use different cultural resources, such as music, art, and sport, to engage young people, to engage them to be more involved against racism. And we are going also to develop the topic during the Peace Incubator project in Geneva this November. The topic, how we can use cultural resources for peace. And we should pay more attention to projects online, and digitalizations help us to increase distribution of cultural resources to a broader audience. So it's very important also to use different opportunities which we have today. We can have also transborder projects, and it's very important in the context of Poland today, in the context of the rest of Europe. For example, we can have Ukrainian Polish or Polish German projects, but it also can be done in other regions of the world to reduce hate and promote positive aspects of common history and peace.
Thank you very much, Natalia. I'm already introducing the next speaker. Now we are going for 2 practical projects. This will be the next part of the presentation. And next one is Vedran Obuchina. He's from Croatia. He's a Rotary Peace Fellow from Chula. Vedran studied political science and theology, and he's currently doing his PhD in Germany. He is working as a political analyst for different institutions like the Polish National Bank and Al Jazeera Network, but he's at the same time a priest in the Orthodox Old Catholic Church, and his specialization is in religion-based reconciliation, and he's active in local religious and interreligious peace initiatives, particularly in the areas of Balkan and Middle East. So let's hear about some of your practical work, Vedran.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation, and hello everyone. It's very nice to see a number of you here. Yes, well, let me start with recollection from a few years ago when Croatia was experiencing a massive wave of immigrants, and the Roman Catholic Church in Croatia employed Caritas to help in any way needed, following the request of the Holy See, but also remembering challenges of refugees from the war that we had in early 1990s. However, one bishop said that helping others is indeed following the footsteps of Christ, but hospitality is given to guests who are only temporarily visiting, and that we should not encourage newcomers to stay. The discussion in our theological circles turned from helping whoever is in need to determining what a guest is. Behind such a statement, of course, is blatant xenophobia as a typical fear of the other. But local priests, however, reminded themselves of an Old Testament God's command from Deuteronomy, "You shall also love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." So in times of challenges and dire circumstances such as COVID-19, xenophobia and racism are particularly pronounced, from blaming everyone who looks like Chinese to the local racist memes of Roma. For example, in Croatia, you have memes of Roma people who ask, "Do you know when we can stop washing our hands?" So xenophobia rests upon conflicting identitarian traits, and thus religion is an important element of one's identity. All non-Christians or non-denominations are attacked, especially from the side of nominally religious people who basically don't understand main tenets of own faith. Again, once I was explaining to a group of nominally hardline Christians about the meeting of Jesus and Samaritan woman, about the dignity of human being with its rights and freedoms, only to be asked from them, so you are some sort of leftist priest. At the same time, these extremists are authoritarian personalities. They are keen to follow an authority. And traditional authority and basis of local legitimacy in many societies are still religious clerics of whatever religion. In fight against entrenched xenophobia, one should use their position and realize their role in a local level. And I'm very, very happy that my other panelists were supporting this local level bottoms-up approach, grassroots approach. In my opinion, all activists should consider local clergy as a potential pillar of support, approaching them with clear theological messages that everyone could understand. So the priests, imams, rabbis, monks are same as all other people, but they are also taught of compassion and helping the other. In theory, they might have reservations toward foreigners or even expose outright xenophobic attitudes, but when they are faced with real event and persons in need in own local environment, they're always ready to find a way to help. And this pertains very local clergy, but unfortunately not the higher hierarchy. In my experience as a trainer for clerics, but also as an advisor for civil societies, such as the Jesuit Refugee Service, it is necessary to detect and form a relationship between activists and clerics, especially due to the skepticism on both sides. These can effectively be broken with mutual understanding. So the clergy should understand that activists are having no agenda except helping the other, raising awareness of xenophobia in society, so not attacking any religious community or whatever. While activists should recognize that religious actors are not passive, but very influential factors in local levels and should employ basic theological knowledge for the wider community. So not only for the clergy, but for the laity, which would be epitomized in a very powerful images, such as Jesus meeting Samaritan woman, Jesus preparing a picnic for 5,000 people, acting as a host here, further stressed as such in monasteries worldwide. Such activities focused on taming and changing xenophobia, racism, and conflicting situations include strong homilies, media initiatives by the clergy, especially in the local level. So why wouldn't we have a progressive priest going to the local radio station and condemn something that is going on in the local environment? There are also interreligious cooperation of priests and laity. There was one excellent association called Abraham in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which unfortunately is not functioning anymore because they don't have finance. There is a Jesuit refugee service in Croatia, which helps the asylum seekers. There is a laity focolare movement with its integrative approach to people of other faith and people of no faith. So the church and non-church initiatives often have this call of Samaritan, evoking a classic event in the Gospels where Jesus talks and helps a Samaritan woman who was considered impure by the Jewish people. Also, this is relevant for Islam, which puts extreme importance on hospitality and learning about the other. In fact, all three Abrahamic religions view ethnic differences as a God's gift in order to know each other better in biblical sense of existential and concrete relationship. I really think it would be boring and frankly quite awful if everyone would be like me. So it's good to have this diversity. So God, through his creation, makes a human as a person, gifted with different charismas and talents. What we need to do is to learn how to accept each other in our totality. And all three faiths cherish this difference as colorful society of brothers and sisters, where, as the famous philosopher Blaise Pascal would say, God is being found through heart and not through mind. He is the God that loves the stranger, And if people, including clergy in your town, I mean the religious people, do not recognize this or act in a xenophobic way, they should be reminded of this. How to remind them? It's very simple, and I will finish with this. Sit down and read the Bible or Quran. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vedran, for your touching theological approach, how to go about racism. It was very nice to listen to you. Our last presenter today is Sanela Music. She's also from the Balkan. She's from Bosnia, a former refugee, and she now lives in Switzerland. She has witnessed war and trauma herself and has overcome it. She's now a member of the Rotary Club Geneva International, like Walter, and she's actively involved in various peace projects. She herself founded an organization that's called Sandchild, and that promotes harmonious growth and helps new generation move past inherited conflicts and create positive impacts in their communities. With Sandchild and together 2 Rotary clubs, they are just planning a new project, and Sanela will now tell us about it. So Sanela, why do you have that strong wish to contribute to a more peaceful world?
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Eva, for organizing this. Thank you, all the Rotarians that are present and Rotary Peace Fellows. To understand my ambition is really to share my experience that trauma can be overcome and even contribute to a more peaceful world. One must understand first from where I'm coming. So I'm a former refugee, and as a child, I witnessed war, violence, and hatred, and displacement. Even members of my close family have been killed or tortured. This has marked my life for a long period of time. So I experienced personally that healing the post-conflict trauma is a long-term process. And as a teenager, I really reflected on, like everybody else, I think, up on the world and its challenges. And today's challenges is, I think, the same. I was really overwhelmed, and I wanted to help, but felt helpless at that time. The challenges looked too big, and it took me time to understand that peace really starts within us. And I had to do my own healing, find my inner peace, and this was my very personal starting point in peace building. I had to reconcile with my life to find hope for a better world and a brighter world. This gave me strength and the conviction that solutions are possible, and how big the challenge may seem, there is still a way. And I believe, and Walter has already mentioned it, in a trickle-up effect and peace promotion. From our inner peace, we can bring peace to our families, our friends, the little groups of surrounding us, or the local communities, and so on. So inner peace immunizes us against the hate speech, I believe, about tendencies to make others responsible for our weaknesses and our fears. And after I work on my own personal development, I really had the courage to make a step towards the others and share my vision of peace, unity, and love. And today I'm really convinced of that peace is possible, and it starts within us.
Can you please explain us how your personal path and your experiences were useful for developing the Harmony Project Bosnia-Herzegovina with your Rotary Club? And the project is called From Inner to Outer Peace.
Yes, so contributing to peace building and conflict prevention was always important for Rotarians and myself as a Rotarian as well. So our Harmony Project continues this Rotary tradition, and the people of Western Balkan, as you know, have been exposed to continuous violence, including the prolonged civil war in 1990s, resulting in extremely traumatic experiences such as ethnic cleansing, rape, or torture. After the civil war, big efforts have been undertaken, as others already mentioned as well, by the Bosnian government, the international community, governmental and non-governmental organizations. However, inner wounds and scars remain. Fear and hatred are still present and passed on from generation to generation. I'm not making a generality. I know that even people that want peace and are peaceful can still have blockages and internal wounds or fears that prevent them to make a step towards the other with trust and confidence to collaborate and have a genuine interaction. So for me, confidence in the future is key to economic and social development. If we can build this trust between different ethnic groups or different people, if the situation prevails as it is, positive peace and economic prosperity will not flourish. So today's one of the biggest challenge in this area, in these regions, are young people that continue to look for a better future somewhere else. So they go out of the countries. Therefore, the promotion of positive change is at the heart of the Harmony Project, and it is proposing a complementary approach to what has been undertaken so far. It aims to contribute to overcome still existing scars and to promote a more inclusive and collaborative way in the communities. So I brought in my personal experience into this project, that the human being must be at the center of it. And therefore we have professional trainers that will work with us, with local teachers and social workers, young leaders, to train them in a master trainer program from all ethnical groups to organize in their local communities their own training classes and events to promote peace. Sunchild is an NGO that I have created, and we will develop a specific tool to promote peace and reconciliations with the formula from inner to outer peace approach. We were hoping to organize the master training in summer 2020. However, the coronavirus pandemic has imposed us a postponement for a few months, but we still want to continue and we are still engaged with this project. Rotarians from other Balkan countries have shown interest in our approach, and even people from Ukraine or Palestine or Israel have shown interest in our project. So we will develop this project in the context also of the Peace Project Incubator that is happening in November. And we hope to be able to convince more Rotarians to implement similar projects wherever it's needed.
Thank you very much, Sanela, for your interesting account of your project that I would be even curious to hear more about. Anyway, I'm very sorry because it was my fault that we started late because of the technical issues. So I would suggest, I did receive some questions that were posed to the panel, but I think it's better if we jump now right into the breakout sessions. There will be 7 breakout sessions, and I would like, every breakout session is led by a facilitator who is a Rotary Peace Fellow, and everybody will be assigned a group number. And I would like to ask participants that you discuss 2 questions amongst each other. And the questions are, what has been your main takeaway of these presentations? It could be a thing that touched you or something that you learned new that you heard for the first time. And the second question is, how do you think that you yourself or Rotary can create a change on this issue? And maybe additionally, what dilemmas and opportunities do you see? I'm very sorry, I should write the questions into the chat, but it's my mobile phone and I'm just not, I cannot do it at the moment, so I just repeat it. What has been your main takeaway of the presentations, and what can you yourself or Rotary do about it? So we have 25 minutes now, then we come back together, and each group has about 1 minute to say the most important thoughts, what came out of their discussions. And please then also, when you come back, post the results of your discussions into the main chat room. That would be very helpful. Thank you, and see you in 25 minutes. The discussion. We now would like to hear what you have discussed in each group. So you can share the results, please. And if you find the time, please also post the main takeaways of your group in the chat room of the main session. And I'm curious what you learned, and everyone has about 1 minute to report. So I would like to ask group 1 with Matthew Johnson to start and tell us what you found out. and what you want to do.
And I think that Sonella was going to present our group's findings, if that's okay.
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 Hello, everyone. So for us, there were a few takeaways. There was the truth, unity, harmony, and call for action that came as main takeaways. But then, as an idea for the future, from Patricia's one, there is a very nice idea that came that we work with schools as Rotary clubs. And then we kind of discussed it, and what came out of this idea is that for children already, young children, what is really important is to build critical thinking, to question things that are put out there, kindness and empathy, as well as self-confidence. These are the, let's say, emotional intelligence tools and skills that are needed for children to then have a sustainable and peaceful world since their very early age. This is it.
Thank you, Sonella.
Yes.
And now, please, I would like to ask group number 2, Shinet, our group, to present what we talked about.
Yeah, so Nabil said he would report for us. So Nabil, if you can hear us.
Can everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I had a call come in between. So basically, there were a lot of takeaways. I think the things that people came out with was, how do you bring people together? And it is like, how do you decolonize not just the curriculum, but also the mindset, and how to take people for being people. I think one thing that was really pointed out was holding the leadership accountable. I think that was very informative. And then it was pointed out that, you have to build a love with action. And sorry is nothing if there is no change. So how do you do that? You definitely have to, sort of walk the talk. And I think another thing was give the people the possibility and the tools to identify fake sources of information. How do you do that? And another thing that was pointed out was what are some of the things that we can do, like virtual meetings like these. COVID-19 is being considered as an opportunity that we've already seen our prejudices, and how do we move beyond that? And we do virtual meetings like these, where we talk about religions, cultures, and problems that are going to affect us now, like war, refugees, and also something that's going to affect us in the later time as well, or right now, like climate change. So I think that's definitely our key takeaways, to consider people as people, and also to decolonize our mind in order to resolve some of the issues. I guess that's about it.
Thank you very much, Nabil. Please now group number 3, who Karen facilitated. We don't hear anybody yet. Have you started to talk? Maybe you need to unmute.
She's muted. Corinne, you're muted.
Okay, sorry. Okay. I would like to ask Rafal first to summarize about our findings, because he took notes, but I can also add them because I took notes while you were speaking, and we will find. Okay. Go ahead.
So I just have sketchy notes, which I am going to share in the chat function in a moment. So we talked about fixing historical injustices, also the broader issue of social justice in the context, for example, of Native Americans and their history. We also mentioned that progress in such cases and progress in the field of awareness can be made, but it can also be lost. And we again talked about the example of Poland addressing its past, and also the example of Germany with the current challenge of right-wing tendencies and xenophobia, especially against refugees. In the very current context, we talked about the danger of inward looking. Well, of course, especially in the context of the pandemic nowadays. But we also talked a little bit about Southeast Asia, For example, the issue of land and water rights, the issue of ethnic strife between Cambodians and Vietnamese, also the legacy of colonialism. And finally, a suggestion was made for Rotary International to initiate a campaign for structural peace with a capital P. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I would like to ask group number 4 to report.
Hello, I will report
Hello,
from, hello, hello everyone. I would like to report for the group number 4. Actually, we have talked about initially about the refugees in this situation and how was the xenophobia regarding this group of people. And then we were mostly focused on what we should do on the second question. And actually, what it came out, we were 3, and at the end we were 4 in my group. So we had plenty of time, you know, to discuss and propose a thing. So what came out at the end is like, in every project is good that the local leaders should be involved. Either this has to do with the government, the local government, and the religious leaders too. A youth project, we all agreed that involving the youth, this could be really very helpful in the projects, and also let's say the communication, the publicity of some projects that has to do with the Rotary, Rotary Fellows and the Rotarians working together and collaborating for projects. So sometimes, as it was stressed, a project, it is not known to the Rotary Fellows that they might help with their knowledge on designing and executing these peace projects. That was the main thing that we have discussed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Spiros. I'm very sorry that we have very little time left, so I would like to ask the next speakers, if you can, to just really make very concise statements of maybe the 1 or 2 most important points. And next would be group number 5.
Hi, my name's Kathy Jordy. We had great discussion in our group. So the highlights, some of the things that the action items were definitely the incubator, which Walter had talked about. I think we actually have someone in the group who had a very succinct example of what their Rotary Club had done in relationship to a group that was discriminated and ignored because of the COVID-19, and how that club addressed the concerns and the needs for that particular community. I think one of the takeaways again was Rotarians and Rotary Peace Fellows working together to stop talking and take action, right? And one of the last things we talked about was that we should act as the virus does. We should both personally, as well as Rotarians and Rotary Peace Fellows, work with the community. Each of us leave here today with an action item that we can go back to our families, to our communities, to our Rotary clubs, and act upon.
Thank you for your beautiful words. Now I would like to ask group number 6 with Dean to report.
Hi there, I'm Dean Ravitza, and I facilitated group 6, and Catherine is our most excellent reporter, and she's going to share with you some of our thoughts.
Okay, so we had a really good discussion also, like everyone, very broad, and to try to make it fairly quick, some takeaways that were important were the locally led focus and local religious leaders, local sports clubs, all other kinds of projects that, you know, are important at the community level to then be able to impact xenophobia at levels like the national or international levels. Those tend to be the most effective. The importance of history as part of these fear of the other and hatreds and old conflicts, not forgetting that and trying to deal with those as we look at how that's being exacerbated in the current world. The sports program was another locally led initiative that was brought up. And someone in our group, Mortalis, said that xenophobia has no boundaries for colors, race, religions, class, etc. And I thought that was pretty good way of putting it. We also discussed 3 ideas for projects. There was the Peace Process Incubator, getting involved and working on projects there. But there was also something Ivana mentioned, that there are a Rotary Club, she's a long-term peace activist, that are working with the interactors and youth and inviting them to meetings in certain areas and certain regions that this has been agreed to. And the idea is to kind of teach them and discuss through this idea of getting over the fear of others, of being able to communicate with other types of people and cultures, et cetera, and kind of modeling that. And then the last one was another great idea that Rotary in general could help in combating misinformation and propaganda that can inflame xenophobia, because that's what Rotary is about, and that's what the Peace Fellows are about. You know, we're connecting, and we're across so many different religions and cultures and geographies. And one person mentioned, Vedran, I will add with his comments, that our differences are basically from God, and this idea of differences as strengths rather as something that then should divide us. And then we really took that away as well.
Thank you so much. And now please for the last group led by Martin Scott.
Yeah, for us, Neil will report out kindly.
Sure. Yes, so quickly, I guess. We had some very personal sharing time about how in different contexts some of us are facing xenophobia and racism. So we had created this very short but safe space to actually talk about these things. And mainly, I would just mention that, that this idea of Vedran said that what we need to do, it doesn't have to be big and huge projects and global projects, but we have to start with watching and acting upon our own neighborhood and just being there in the street or in our closest circles and watching there and acting upon over there.
Okay. Thank you very much. So thank you for sharing all your ideas. Also, thank you very much to the note takers that I saw that most of you already posted into the main chat room. The time is over. We're actually over the end a little bit. So I cannot really summarize because you have had so many different ideas. It goes from the complete inside, building peace from the inside, working with school children, doing seminars, decolonizing, school books, fighting social injustice, dealing with refugee situations. So actually it seems like very, very many different levels that we can actually act upon. So I'm sure that each of us who is willing can find their way, and start with yourself. It's a perfect suggestion. Now we have to come to a closing. I wanted to announce the next webinar, which will take place next Thursday, but I don't have the details yet. So watch out for Bill's postings. And thank you for your interest and for your contributions today. Everybody who participated will be sent a link to the recording of this Zoom session. And you can also still now, if you feel the need to share something urgently or to ask another question, you can still post it into the chat room and we will try to get back to you. So thanks again for being with us today and keep the good work and the good spirit up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eva, very much.